You know, every society has its own way of dealing with the unthinkable. Those moments when the world just completely stops making sense. But let me tell you, some of those methods are way, way stranger than you could ever imagine.
So what happens when a pig commits murder? It sounds like the setup for a bad joke, right? But for hundreds of years, this was a deadly serious question, and it had an equally serious answer.
And no, this is not some dark fairy tale. This actually happened. In 1457, a sow killed a 5-year-old boy. Its own piglets were found right there, covered in his blood. Just try to picture the horror in that village, the absolute chaos. How does a community even start to make sense of something like that?
Well, their answer was surprisingly straightforward. In medieval Europe, the response was clear. You arrest the pig, you throw it in jail, and then you give it a full, formal legal trial.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. What did it actually mean to put an animal in the defendant's box?
First things first, you gotta get the modern farm pig out of your head. We're not talking about some cute, pink, chubby animal. No. Medieval pigs were basically closer to wild boars. They were fast, they were powerful, and they were omnivores. They were absolutely capable of killing and even eating a small child. This wasn't some abstract fear for them. This was a very real, very terrifying daily threat. So we know what they did, but the bigger question is why? Why go through this whole elaborate ceremony of a trial for an animal? Well, the answer has everything to do with their need to restore what they saw as divine order. See, this wasn't just about simple revenge. For the medieval mind, the world had a very strict, God-given hierarchy, with humans way up at the top. So a pig killing a human child, that was more than a tragedy. It was a cosmic crime. It was a complete, unbearable flip of the natural order itself. So a trial and a public execution, that was the only surefire way to fix what had been so violently broken. And they were deadly serious about it. This wasn't some kind of mob justice. The pig was formally arrested, kept in a jail cell, sometimes for years at the local lord's expense, and then given a full trial. If it was found guilty, a professional executioner was hired for the job. Honestly, the sheer bureaucracy of it all is what makes it so incredibly bizarre. But you know, it wasn't just about cosmic order. It was also about cold, hard, earthly power. For a local lord, the right to build a gallows was a huge status symbol. I mean, in one case, a lord spent 5 years petitioning a duke for permission, all just to hang one pig. The trial became this huge public spectacle to show everyone exactly who was in charge. A pig trial gives you a neat, if, horrifying conclusion. But what happens when the thing causing the chaos is something you can't put on trial? What do you do when the horror is invisible? I mean, you can't exactly put a demon in handcuffs, right? Or hang a faceless killer. So how do people cope with that kind of shapeless fear? Well, that's when we humans get creative. We create rituals. And this is basically the birthplace of superstition. Think about it. Knocking on wood to keep evil spirits away, tossing a coin in a well, even something like cutting a little cross into a Brussels sprout to chase out a tiny demon. They might seem silly to us now, but every single one is a small act of control, a way to make a terrifying, unseen world feel just a little bit more manageable. And what about when formal justice just fails completely? Well, the horror doesn't just go away. It changes. It becomes legend. In one English town, Hull, the stories of unsolved murders and bizarre disappearances just sort of seeped into the local folklore. It was a way to contain the fear by giving it a name, even if you could never truly solve it. It's so easy for us to look back at all this and feel a little superior, right? Building a gallows for a pig? Come on. But have our ways of dealing with monsters really changed all that much? The gallows are gone, but the monsters? Oh, they are definitely not. Let's just consider the modern case of Timothy Vafades, the so-called vampire trucker. The facts of the case are straightforward and just sickening. He was a long-haul trucker who held women captive, assaulting them nearly every day. And the details are just pure, bizarre horror. He literally used a power tool to grind off his victims' teeth, and he wore his own set of fanged dentures. It's a kind of grotesque cruelty that feels almost medieval, a total inversion of what it means to be human. And our reaction? It's that same deep, primal need to condemn, to cast out the evil. This online comment, it's really just the modern version of the jeering crowd at the gallows. It's the same outrage, the same need for justice. It's just moved from the town square to the comment section.
So, what's the thread connecting a medieval pig to a modern monster? Well, it all comes down to our deep, fundamental human need for a narrative, a story to make sense of evil.
I mean, the parallels are just striking when you lay them out. Public executions have basically become our 24/7 news cycle. The animal trials, well, today we have true crime podcasts. That need to restore divine order now fuels our obsession with sensational court cases. And all those ancient rituals and superstitions, they're alive and well in the online comment sections where we all try to process our collective fear and outrage.
Ultimately, that's the big takeaway here. Whether it's a pig on the gallows or a horrific crime becoming a trending hashtag, the tools and the technology have changed completely, but that core human impulse is exactly the same. When we're faced with something unspeakable, we have to create a story around it. We need that narrative to contain the horror, to process it, and to try and restore some sense of order to our world.
So, the next time you find yourself deep into a true crime documentary, or you're obsessively scrolling through comments on some horrifying news story, just ask yourself, are we really so different from that medieval crowd, all gathered around the gallows, just trying to make sense of it all?